The Flyin Lion says,
Boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
Just give me a reason to drink some Guinness in the morning.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
I appreciate the opportunity.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
Soccer's my favorite sport now.
The jersey swap was
my car of the week, trivia question of the week.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin Lion podcast. Back tonight after a hell is real 0-0 draw, guys. What a complete 180 from what we thought this game would be. Just happy to be back on this Monday night. We got the full crew. Sam, Zach, we're all here tonight chatting in the first part of the episode. Again, a recap, hell is real, this draw that we had. First one in 3 months or even longer, I think. And then second part of the episode, we'll do our cards of the week, jersey swaps of the week. We had a hell is plausible FC Cincinnati 2 win, so that was really exciting. And then we'll preview two big games that FC has this week on the road. So lots to kind of get into tonight. First, Sam, how are we feeling? What were your thoughts going into hell is real?
Yeah, I mean, feeling as good as you can, right? I know going into this game, we talked about last week, the big portion of it is we were missing Robinson and Murphy, right, coming into it. So how is that going to play out specifically in the back line? And considering we walked away without giving up a goal, I'd say, we did our job. And I mean, I think Columbus still has a game in hand, but we're only 2 points ahead of them instead of, dropping 3 points to them this past Saturday, right? So we've got a big week ahead of us with 2 more games. So we'll see how we rotate the squad even more.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Sam. I think, my biggest hesitation these past few weeks is, there's all these new players that we've just signed. They've really not had a lot of consistent play or any play at all. So they've not really had, any cohesion for the rest of the season. We only have 6 games left, and that's not a lot of time to really start to gel with the team, especially when you got a striker, which needs to gel with Lucho, essentially. And then you got Cheeto, teenage as well, but he's not even seen the pitch yet. So makes you a little scared, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, it's crazy that these guys get added and they're huge pieces for the team, for a playoff run. And, like you mentioned, we only have 6 games left. So how well can they integrate? And, Pat's interviews after this game is talking about, consistency. Can we get our lineup to be consistent? I think 2 episodes ago, we really touched on that, and we were really calling for the same lineup because I think we'll get to it. But I'm just going to say it now. We haven't had the same lineup for any game for 35 games this year. That is an insane stat. Unbelievable we haven't had the same one. Totally against what Pat had been the last, 2 years. But guys, a 0-0 draw. That makes us 16-4-8 overall. We clinched the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row under Pat Noonan. So something that the Cincinnati Reds have never done. I thought that was wild. Sam and I had looked that up after the game. The Bengals have done it. Cincinnati Royals had done it. But the Reds have never made the playoffs 3 years in a row. Kind of crazy. But the atmosphere for this game was nuts. A great march to the stadium. I feel like every time I'm a part of the march, it feels like the biggest march we've ever had. Sam's chuckling at that, but you felt it that way. Great atmosphere, great person for the sword pull. Sam had put out a thing before the game as well. Are we going to see Ledesma? And he was the perfect choice.
Yeah. I was telling you guys throughout the game, this was the sword pull that we have all been waiting for, really. Ever since he kind of has made his way back to the club, it's gotten more involved. He's rocking new merch for the club as well. It was kind of it was waiting there, right, for that moment against Columbus. I think it was the perfect sword pull, like you said, Ryan. But yeah, the atmosphere, go right into the Tifo, right? Come on, guys. Holy crap. That is European-esque. Absolutely.
Yeah. Honestly, I got to enjoy the festivities with my sister. So we went to a little bar hopping before instead of doing our typical Washington Park, pregame. But honestly, even all the bars, everybody was so hyped for it. They were you could hear chants in some of the bars as we were walking around and enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys get this intel, but great call on the Ledesma. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, he got to be out there with his kids, and you don't really get to see that very often. So that was pretty cool to
True.
see.
For the guy to
But
make his home in Cincinnati, like unbelievable, that he came back and said, this is where I want to be, this is where I'm loved. And you could tell the emotion was there for him. I mean, he was bawling his eyes out. So you can tell like he might say it, but he actually like feels that way. Like you can genuinely tell like the guy was choked up and was like absolutely loving it. And he got to call the game for the Spanish broadcast. So that was a nice little nod as well for him.
Yeah, I know. We had seen that, pre-game, and it was like, is he gonna be the ones, pulling the sword if he's also doing the commentary? Like usually you don't really see that often because, I mean, that's a very quick trip that he's got to take all the way up to the press box to get in there, headset on. Okay, vamos, let's go.
I wonder if the other Spanish commentators said, "Come on, Ledesma, you need to get up here."
He
Like,
probably timed him. He was like, and go. Like
I feel like the guy could still play. I mean, he looks fit. We're not
I mean,
having a Wayne Rooney situation, like 40 pounds overweight. But we we did have Manu that could probably suit up. I know he did for TST. But yeah, speaking of the lineup for this game, I guess we'll roll into it, and then I'm going to give you my commentary on the Tifo too. But Celentano, we had Kubo at left wing back. We had Alvis Powell, Awazium, and Yedlin. So we had two right wing backs that were playing center back. We had Orishano on the right, Buka, Obi, Lucho, Nico, and Kelsey. So slightly different than what we were thinking, in our match game preview. No Miles Robinson, no Murphy. And then Teenage Hadebe was an unused sub. We were at least hoping we get a debut by him, but apparently it was always the plan to have him a part of the 18, but to not bring him into the game. Big shout out to our man, Alvis Powell, 100th cap for FC Cincinnati. Had himself a game, guys. I felt like he was solid in this match, and we really, really needed it, especially with the makeshift back line. So that was kind of the lineup. I'll let you guys kind of give me your initial thoughts of that, and then we'll backtrack. We'll go to the Tifo part after that.
yeah, I know lineup wise, is kind of what I expected up top, right? We had talked about last game, Nico and Kelsey being up top, and then just exchanging, Kubo for Lucho. We weren't sure how it was going to look as far as the back line. Obviously, Pat decides to go with Kubo at left wing back, and we're kind of like, oh, geez, like why are we doing this? Putting, Orshano on the right side, which guys, I mean, we said the whole game he's gonna cut back every time. Like, unfortunately and fortunately, like Columbus at times read it and sometimes they didn't, which I don't know how you don't. But that was kind of like my first impressions of the lineup.
yeah, honestly, I think you said it earlier, Ryan, at the very beginning. I mean, the consistency with the lineup. I mean, I'm itching for some sort of consistency for this last final bit, but you don't know what Pat's going to pull. But we also don't know how our yellow card situation is going to be, your card situation. So honestly, and this kind of talking like overarching, with the rest of the season that we've got. I mean, really, I'm not so much worried about the defense as I am worried about the offense. Obviously, because we just picked up those few pieces that kind of helped fill the rest of our defense in. But really, right now we have the lowest XG conceded in the league, and we're about sixth place with goals conceded per match. So really, I don't think it's as much the defense and the goalkeeping as it is that connecting play in the midfield when we don't have Lucho and that Nico and Kelsey, what do you call that?
Connection up there. Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah. Well, so for this game, I guess, did that make you worried then? How would we score against the Crew?
I think, very beginning of the match, I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but Kelsey's really starting to understand that hold up play. You could really see it in a lot of the initial, 15 minutes, but I think that's his role he needs to play. And I think he's starting to get that in his head that he's better at that than he is at the playing off the man, at least for our team,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a great point by both of you. Seeing the lineup, especially, in this big of a game, like having Kubo at a, left wing back position is interesting. But if you go back to the first Hell is Real, he played right wing back, so I really felt like at some points you could have even switched Kubo and Orishano and you had a lot of flexibility. If you really look at the individual battles, though, in this game, Columbus switches their outside guys. So it really tells you that Farsi and blanking on the other guy's name that was on the other side.
Yeah, the young guy.
Yeah,
Arson.
Arson.
Yeah, Arson.
Yeah, so they switched them, which tells you that Orishano was just burning them. They had to try to flip it around to try to get something going, and it didn't even work. But yeah, we actually had the better pairing, I felt like, in this situation. We'll backtrack for a second. Similar to what they do in the stadium, they give you the lineup, and then we get the Tifo. But the Tifo had to be the best that I've ever seen for Hell is Real game. Arguably first, overall of all time. Props to the Forge and everyone for, in the Bailey, understanding the assignment, putting up the banners when they should have. And it was an awesome display. Everyone was speechless. I saw crew fans were taking photos too. So they'd never seen anything like that before, up in Columbus. But this is a, game by game thing for FC Cincinnati. We definitely understood it. But yeah, build up to this game. So early on in the game, though, with how big of the moment it was, the crowd was really into it. Columbus gets two pretty big chances early on, and the first one that Diego Rossi should have probably scored on, Sam.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I was so nervous after that chance because, in my opinion, looking at the beginning of the game, the first 20 minutes, really that side of Powell being on the left side with Kubo, Farsi was absolutely killing us on that side, down that side, and I had made the point of I don't know how often, if at all, we have ever seen Alvis Powell as a left center back. Usually it's on the right side. So this is kind of like a unique position for him. First 20 minutes was kind of shaky on that side specifically.
That's interesting that you called that out. I never really picked that up as he looked pretty comfortable is
Yeah.
all I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
he looked like
Came
he was
into the
out
game.
of place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Sam, the thing that both of you and I were mentioning were how much energy both Powell and Yedlin had. I mean, they were just, I had never seen anything like it. I mean, I think it was just the intensity. It felt like a playoff match, like the intensity that
It
you know,
did.
put in, the grit. I loved it. It was great.
The energy matched the hair for Yedlin. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Blowout, baby.
Big shout
Just-
out. The guys brought out, all the crazy hair for this game. Santos, Assad, and then we had Yedlin with his fro. So a lot of cool stuff going on in the hair game. That's not my card of the week, though. So as we move along, 44th minute, guys, I thought we had a goal. I thought we had a Lucho goal. And, everyone, of course, in the stadium is going bonkers. But if you go back and watch it, like he was pretty clearly offside. I just want him to show it in the stadium. Because in the moment, you're like, oh, man, Kelsey plays this beautiful ball to Lucho over top. He takes it left-footed one-on-one with the keeper right in front of the Bailey. Everyone's going crazy, and they call it back. Would have been a huge moment right before half to have that momentum, though.
Yeah, I mean, you look back and obviously like Ryan, I know in the moment and going into half, we're like zooming, trying to get like onto Apple TV to see like what was the vantage point, from the broadcast, like was he offside, whatever. But I mean, towards the end of that half there, FC kind of got it going, right? I mean, Kelsey had a chance to where, that high press was leading to chances for us, and their back line even started to like do their own form of high press. So that was, able to kind of put Lucho on the other side there, and get a chance before half, but unfortunately just offside.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I hate being on the all the way other side of the field again, like from the Bailey. I mean, they always do the cool stuff on that side, it seems like. But at any rate, yeah, it was great. Great to see the energy after that goal, even though it was ruled offsides. I hate it. The thing that bothered me about that play was Mo Farsi. Did you see like him just like he held his hand up and turned around like even before
Oh,
Lucha.
right away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. Like
Yeah.
have some respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I felt that way too. And I mean, honestly, obviously he scores in that moment, but that's the closest that we had to a goal, and past that, we go into halftime. I feel like we have the momentum. Like we feel pretty good about how we played that half. We didn't concede. Makeshift back line that we had like is doing well. So we go into the second half and you're like, high powered, crew offense is going to try to figure something out. Nance is going to see something and try to, pressure us or make us make a mistake. We come out of the half and we're buzzing. I mean, I feel like we had a high press and we flustered them. I'll get to kind of my impression of the game that talks about this further, but it leads up to this moment where Kelsey gets a shot off, with his left foot, hits off the guy's chest off the line. So a great opportunity. The ball's in the air, and Camacho and Nico just collide, and you just see blood going everywhere. And in that moment, you're thinking, all right, concussion for both of them. They're both out. You see Santos warming up. We had a delay, seemed like to all of us like 10 minutes, in this moment. Ends up being like 6 or 7 minutes. We go back to the first half, no extra time, and in this moment, you get all of this. So it was a kind of a mood killer, wouldn't you guys say?
I mean, that was just a play in general that you would have thought we would have put it in the back of the net. I know that, play started with Schulte pass out of the back, hits Lucho straight in the stomach, kind of takes his,
Right.
the wind out of him. So I'm going to guess that he didn't shoot that because he couldn't really breathe. And so he passes it off to Kelsey, and Kelsey, unfortunately, I mean, the defender's just right there, so he's able to kind of get in the way of the goal. But yeah, shout out to Nico for putting his body on the line, really, to kind of try and put something into the box and get something on goal.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ryan. I think it really, I mean, granted that was the beginning of the half, and I think it was the second minute or something, and you come out buzzing, and then you get this amazing opportunity, and then boom, 6 minutes, and then you're back to square one. So it's like, what do you do after that? How do you recover and come back out firing after that? What felt like forever.
Yeah, and honestly, it did feel kind of stagnant from both teams. I mean, a lot of the play after that was pretty direct. I feel like the first 45 minutes were so emotional for both teams. Like we saw like Yedlin putting balls out of bounds just because he was so amped up. So, you have this big moment, this big emotional type thing where you see both players go down. Good sportsmanship by both of them. They're both going for a 50-50 ball. Surprised the ref doesn't call a yellow because it seemed like that was the theme of the game. But yeah, it definitely kind of killed the vibe at that point. Then it was like tired legs, and then you start to get some weird subs at the end of the game that felt like we were settling in a way. I mean, wouldn't you guys say the subs we see? Santos comes in for Kelsey, which I mean, should that have been Nico Giacchini in that moment? A guy that, could he breathe out of his nose in that point? You guys were both saying like in that situation, like, can you breathe? And I mean, he still can breathe through his mouth, but it's difficult. Why would you not take him out in that moment when Kelsey's been playing the way he had?
No, yeah, I think, going into the latter half of the game, obviously we didn't see really much the rest of the game. So the subs were the focal points of what we can kind of nitpick here because that could have, affected the rest of the game for us. Whereas, Pat was wanting to play a little bit more conservative and taking, Lucho out, Orishano out, Kelsey out, which, we did see great hold up play from Kelsey. I really thought, this was, I mean, he didn't score, but I really thought this was a very mature game from him, being that big man up front and playing off of, Lucho and other guys up front. So I thought, he would have been the guy to stay up front, but I guess, Nico, get him more time, get him kind of more accustomed to the system, maybe.
That's really, really good point. Initially, I mean, I thought it was very strange to make those subs as well. I thought it's just weird coming from Pat how conservative he wanted to play the rest of that match. It seemed like, we're always like go for the kill, go for the goal, but never have we really seen him in this. I personally haven't noticed it like directly, like noticeably, but it seemed like he was very standoffish from wanting to push players forward, bring in players that put more on offense rather than defense.
If you look at the way the season has gone, though, like maybe he's learned, this ain't the year to like go 110, and he talked about consistency even before the game, but then talks about it after. And I think that was kind of to back up his sub choice in this game, is to say, like, hey, I know it's a rivalry. I know it's this game at home, but we have 2 games this week and we don't want Orishano out because he's hurt,
I
and
think I think most of that is because it's at home, right?
right.
We haven't really done as well as we have,
Yeah.
last season at home. So maybe he's just like, hey, we need just a point at home to kind of, you know, get some momentum at home, really.
All the
Progress.
fans, I mean, justified for everyone that's listening to this is so justified to say, though, like, it's a game against Columbus. You want to
Oh,
win.
yeah,
We
absolutely.
all want to win this game. Like, and in the moment, like, you're like, why are you taking off your second best player? And then at the end, why are you taking Lucho off in this moment? And clearly Lucho didn't love it. So, I mean, he comes out and says, like, draws aren't acceptable. Which props to him for saying, like, we want to win. And in that moment against your rival, like, you're so emotional and you see Cucho still on the field and you're coming off, like, how did that end the last time in the playoffs? He hated that. So I mean, I can't blame him at all. It seems now obviously like a good play, but in the moment, if something goes the flip way, like, we'd be screaming, and we're still kind of upset about it. So yeah, I think in the end it was a little bit odd. The choices were, but we come out of it with a point. Now again, that makes the third consecutive season making the playoffs. This draw, guys, it was only the second time against the Crew that we had a scoreless draw. The last one in 2020, that was a COVID year, so not surprised by that. And then, the one interesting thing about this game in terms of stats, fouls, number one, 18 fouls to 9. It felt like every single time we touched them, they were on the ground. It was terrible. Every single time that Cucho touched the ball and then we touched the guy on the back, he was rolling around in circles. I said probably the second worst diver besides Neymar. I think I said that during the game.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. The other one was we actually won the possession battle, guys.
Yeah, I
Rare.
know. I thought we did a pretty solid job throughout the game, but you look up at the stat sheet and you see the fouls that are on us, right? Which those contribute to possession, right? Because you're being able to set down the ball, take some time, take some, run some clock. So, yeah, the fact that we come out with more possession, you kind of look at it like, did we use the time effectively?
It honestly, it's even more surprising when you see Columbus's average possessions like 59%.
Yeah.
We're only the third team this year to have more possession than they did.
Hmm.
The third team
Love
out
that.
of all the teams they've played. I mean, that's pretty impressive for what we had in this moment too. But it's honestly like taking what we had. I felt like their game plan actually this game was to play more of a counter-attacking. If we were bunkered in and they had more possession, we felt better about it because we had more numbers behind the ball. If we were in possession and we lost the ball, like Obi had been earlier in the year, or with a makeshift back line, you have Cucho and Rossi coming down your throats with wingers on the side. Like, to me, that seems like a better plan from their standpoint. But the guys stepped up in a big way and they really, I mean, halted everything that came out their way. So, yeah, for me, like, I'll get into my impressions. I mean, the first draw that we've had since March 30th, like, that's crazy. I've never seen that in the MLS season. Like I mentioned, the makeshift back line was great. The Rossi Cucho thing was insane. Like, I felt like they weren't even really on the ball, and when they dribbled it out of bounds. When he was on the ball and he got hit, he was falling down to the ground trying to make things happen. Like, that tells you how much we frustrated them, which was amazing. In that high pressure, I mean, it was a high risk and the reward was there, but it could have gone the flip way. And I mean, in this game, we did well. I felt like after the first 15 minutes, we settled in. Like we said, Powell made some really good decisions. We read passing lanes. And then we really made them play more direct, which they did not want to do, which was impressive. So that's kind of what I drew out of it. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I think, one for me, Salentano had a phenomenal game. He really stood on his head. I know there were in that first 20 minutes I was talking about, he had two great saves, one on Cucho and then one on Ramirez, I believe, that he was just kind of a brick wall, right? And so it goes to show that, he can be one of the best shot stoppers in the MLS. Obviously, distributing wise, he continues to kind of struggle a little bit, and we saw that during the game, but shot stopping, he's, up there, at least top two, top three.
Schulte had the worst distribution this game, though.
It's true. I'm not saying Schulte's any better. I'm just saying, we know Celentano needs to work on that. But Roman hasn't had a clean sheet since June 29th in MLS play. However, he did have one against Querétaro, so I guess we'll kind of count that, right? But June 29th, man, like, hey, way to get your clean sheet, right? Get out of there with a point and a clean sheet. But yeah, I thought we had some, open chances due to the high press, right? We just weren't able to convert, but we fought really hard, and we'll take a winning series this year over the Crew and regular season play.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, considering backline we have, super happy with how this result turned out. Midfield, I'd like to see a bit more transition play from Obi and Lucho, or sorry, Obi and Buka, and seeing that turn on the ball a little bit more. I think we need to go through our midfield a little bit more than we are. It just opens up risk on the outside. So I think with that forwards, I would say, that connection from the midfield into both Nico and Kelsey, I'd like to see them actually do something with the ball. It seems like all too many times they just pass it back and then nothing really comes of it. I'd like to see a little bit more shots, honestly. I think this later half of the season, it seems like our shots on target or shots in general have dwindled quite significantly. But overall, I'm actually very satisfied considering we're still second in the East. I mean, we're keeping Columbus at bay, with 2 points. Super happy with the series, like you guys have both mentioned. But overall, who doesn't love a nice Hell is Real match with a beautiful crowd?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you put it well there. One thing that I want to take away from what you said, especially with the forwards, and Sam, you also mentioned it too, is Kelsey's hold up play in this game was impressive, but getting that to work with Nico to play off of him and occupying space, but not only that, but how to press together. You'd seen it in other games where one guy would press, the other guy wouldn't, and then they beat it. In this game, it was coordinated, and that's probably a product to them having 10 days to prepare for it. But if they can continue that, like, it created opportunities, and the chances will come. It's just finishing it, like you mentioned, Sam. But to see them actually working together is the key to winning something, and to get Lucho involved with that. I mean, if you look how Columbus plays with their front line and includes their outside backs, it's very free flowing and it moves quickly. If we can play, at a very similar clip or rate, either transitioning through the midfield, like you mentioned, Zach, whipping it out wide, like creating chances into the box with crosses, like you saw more of that put together in this game. And if we sustain that for the last 6 games, I feel like it's going to come, and you're only going to play like worse teams from here on out, except for LAFC, obviously. But I feel like the rest of the schedule, like, I mean, you're not going to see another Crew, so I feel pretty decent if they can continue that way. So yeah, great point by both of you. I thought that was really good. Before we go to a break here, though, I do have a trivia question for you if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Trivia question of the week. When was the last time that FC Cincinnati lost to a Western Conference MLS team? So I'm talking, this could be tournament play, this could be anything.
This trivia question's out of nowhere because we just played an Eastern Conference rival. So
the reason why is because we do play a Western Conference team, Minnesota, on Wednesday. So that's where this comes from.
So if I am looking at this past season, right? I think we're still undefeated against all the Western Conference, if not, win, draw, whatever. Maybe even I'm gonna go all the way back to last season against St. Louis.
Zach, what about you?
I'm trying to even remember who we played on the Western Conference this season.
This year we played the Rapids, San Jose, St. Louis. Is there another Dallas?
Dallas. I think
Yeah.
Dallas was the other one as well.
Yeah, man. I would say probably. Are you looking for a team
Yep.
that we lost to?
Yep. And then
Yeah.
if you have like a time too.
Just because I don't remember any other matches last season, I'm gonna go with. Was that Austin at the beginning of last season?
2 years ago.
Oh no, not that far.
He's like, no, never mind, never mind.
I was gonna say it's probably one of the LAFC or LA Galaxy.
All right. Zach's locking it in. We
We'll
will
just say
do LA, one of the LA teams.
Yeah.
We'll give you the answer at the end of the episode. We will be right back.
Hey everyone, we have some exciting news. We are thrilled to announce a partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join some of our favorite sportsbooks to get the best odds and new user offers.
Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/flyinlions to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings.
If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level and show some love for our brand, we highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. Once again, visit signupexpert.com/flyinlions to place your bets today. Enjoy.
We are back tonight on this Monday night talking about FC Cincinnati and a series sweep for the first team. We're going to get into the second team in the MLS Next Pro season as well with a Hellas Plausible win. Before we get there, though, we did have some funny moments, some interesting things from this week. Gentlemen, I'm interested to see your card of the week. Sam, let's start with you.
Yeah, card of the week. Was literally just scrolling through Twitter to see what was going on this week and saw that the NWSL kind of put out a GM survey through ESPN. The Players Association and the NWSL just announced a new collective bargaining agreement through 2030, actually, which is crazy. But the ESPN conducted an interview with the GMs, and when asked which cities should the NWSL expand into, Atlanta received the most votes, and Cincinnati only received one vote. And so Cincinnati, however, was notably the most name-checked more than once by all the GMs. So one GM, though, said Cincinnati isn't the most glamorous market, but it has a great facility, a big base of fans, and it's an affordable marketplace. So I just thought that was a slap in the face.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, did they watch this game? Did they see the fans? How many people show up to Atlanta games this year? Isn't that supposed to be the epicenter of U.S. soccer? And then Miles Robinson, who was a U.S. soccer player, left Atlanta to go to Cincinnati. Oh, wait, yeah. And didn't they just fire their GM as well?
I feel like a lot of Atlanta players actually come to Cincinnati.
Yeah. Vasquez, Can.
Yeah. Vasquez, yeah.
Alec Can.
Yeah.
Yamil Assad.
Yeah. Oh,
you might be onto something there. Hey. Yeah, I don't like it, Sam. That's a good card. Is that a yellow or a red?
It's a yellow. It's a yellow because he gave the GM, man or woman, gave a somewhat of a compliment right in the back half of the quote there, saying great facilities, great base of fans. Not really sure how I would take the affordable marketplace part, but is what it is.
Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with an in-game issue that I think we've talked about it a lot, but it was noticeable. I felt like on this match, man marking. I think it was the first 15 minutes when they had both the Rossi and the Ramirez, where Cucho slotted it right to Ramirez, who literally walks right in front of both Cheeto and can't remember who, Obi, Yedlin, I think.
Maybe, or yeah.
Obi, and he just has an open shot with Roman. It's just like all too many times. I mean, obviously our free kicks and corners, we're just set pieces. We're so bad at man marking and guarding that it's like flowing into our like actual like live I don't know, what do you call that, ongoing time, whatever. But it seems like, it's an issue that even Cucho even had a header and nobody was marking him. It's like, guys, like, what are we doing? Can someone step up on the back line, start calling stuff out? Doesn't matter, just please man mark. Not that hard. That's it.
Yeah, no, I was literally gonna call out, like, I hate to name names, but DeAndre Yedlin had two of them where the man marking one corner, he got beat on the back post, and luckily the guy headed it over. The one that you were talking about with Cucho's wide open header was his man as well. So the man marking, it all comes to communication, and I'm gonna give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt just with the fact that, like, it's a makeshift back line in this game. You have to over communicate everything about where everyone is. And if you guys have noticed, the way that we've been defending the set pieces has been a little bit different. I think we used to have a zonal marking for our corners, and we've gone to more of a man-on-man type system, which I think works better for corners. They've tried to have, I mean, there needed to be a switch, let's be honest. I mean, look at all the goals we've given up. But yeah, I like the card.
Yeah, I think the man marking during this game obviously could have been a lot better. Specifically, Ryan, like you guys had mentioned, it really does. I think corners for us is such like a stressful time. During these corners against Columbus, it was like, oh, geez, please don't concede one here, right? And then there was, a couple times where there were headers, close to, if not, shots on goal. I think one header was right at Celentano, right? And luckily it was just right to him, right? So you're kind of just getting by the skin of your teeth there. But yeah, luckily we can kind of improve on that, hopefully. Like Ryan said, hopefully changing up formation so that way communication can be a little bit easier for everybody.
I mean, you're going to talk about it less. Go ahead, Zach.
Sam just kept saying, hopefully. I'm just saying the hope's going to kill you.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's the hope that kills you, actually.
There we go.
But my card, guys, I'm bringing back the cards. Yellow card of the week here goes to the referee because there was a huge extra time discrepancy in this game. Hell's Real rivalry match. First half, no extra time. 45th minute, I think the guy had to pee. Pretty sure he had to just get off the field and go pee. But for the second half, like I mentioned, I went back and looked at this collision, Giacchini and Camacho. The guys were on the field for 6 minutes, 7 minutes. It was somewhere in the ballpark, 6 or 7 minutes of extra time that should have been added just for that. Then you had subs. Then you had free kicks. You had all of the fouls that this guy wanted to call this half and all of the yellow cards that he wanted to give to people. But you only get 7 minutes of extra time because of it. I mean, that's a crime.
When we saw, after the first half, it goes into what should be extra time, and the whistle just blows, and you're kind of just like, wait, nothing? Like we're gonna do anything here? Because that first half felt like it went so quick too. Like the whole game did. Like we got out of there by like what, 9:15, 9:30? Like it was actually like pretty quick with the game starting at 7:40. And so that second half, the big collision with Nico and the crew player, we've got a gash in somebody's face. We got a bloody nose. Takes 10 to 15 minutes really, and lo and behold, it's like, we'll give you 7. How's this? Like, what is going on here? Yeah, I thought that was, I mean, throughout the whole game, the reffing was just incredible. I know we had talked about 19-8 ratio. So yeah, I mean, somebody wanted to get out of there real quick.
You think Cucho went with him?
Coochie?
Yeah, for real, man. It was ridiculous.
No, all joking aside, yes, I would agree. I would agree that I honestly, as much as I like the fairness but hate the extra time, I really liked how the World Cup did it with that like the time that the ball was out. That is the time that you get added on, like bar none. It might stink having 10 minutes, like a lot all the time, but it's fair.
In this game, I don't mind it as well because, I mean, at the end of the game, they didn't look like super dangerous, but neither did we. The subs we brought off, like I wonder if like Pat knew he wasn't gonna add that much time or something though.
Yeah, those subs did not help us at all. So thank God, honestly, kind of hindsight that we didn't get that much time, or else, it could have been trouble there.
But how do we go from no minutes to the second half of two guys' faces are bleeding and we get 7 minutes total? Like that just doesn't make any sense. But I digress. We go to our jersey swap, Sam. What about you for this week?
Yeah, I know we saw some improvement in the back line. We've talked about whole pod. So my jersey swap of the week is going to be Cheeto. He had the second highest rating in the match, right behind Celentano, and first on FCC in passes with 72 and recoveries. He had 11 recoveries. So he was hustling back there, stepped up in the middle in a big way, like we said, without Robinson or Murphy. And then as the match went on, he controlled the pace of the game a little bit more in the back. And he still looks a little bit more, uncomfortable on the ball. But I think as time will, carry on, we've got 6 games the rest of the season. I think he'll be able to solidify that spot in the back line.
I'm glad that you mentioned the uncomfortable part on the ball because during the game, don't let everyone miss the fact that you said, I can see why Cheeto's been on different teams every year for the past 6 or 7 years.
I said it. Yeah, I said it.
But no, he ended up having a good game. We needed him. We needed him to be an anchor and a communicator, and he kind of was the glue guy for it. And honestly, I think they were scared of him. Like he was just so much of a physical presence back there. Like we need that with Miazga being out. So yeah, great shout.
Honestly, he gives me a little bit of some Miazga vibes with his clearances. His clearances are just beautiful. Like there was a cross that came in like right into the middle, top of 18, and he just like did that sliding boot. Oh my goodness! Like,
and it went off the defender.
That's like,
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, overall, he's great to watch. But he has some, I guess, not very patient play.
To be honest, it's like watching Obi play a little bit, right? Like,
yes.
right?
Yes.
It's that same style of ball, except on the ball, they're kind of, I don't know, they have these lapses of judgment to where you're like, why did you pass it to him? Or why did you pass it like that? And so you kind of just take the good with the bad when it comes to those guys because they're absolutely going to just put their body on the line for the team.
We need that though. Like honestly, we needed that in this game too. But Zach, what was your the jersey swap of the week?
You were bashing on him earlier, but I don't know if that was on accident or on purpose. But I went with Yedlin on this match. Truthfully, only because you guys picked the good ones. I'm not gonna lie. It was hard to see like real. I guess there was from my perspective, Yedlin had a lot of progress. I mean, obviously he's had a lot of experience. He's very mature for a player, but his energy that he brought that I mentioned earlier was just so amazing. Like that's why we love players in Cincinnati is the energy that they bring and the effort that they put in. And Yedlin showed that on Saturday. And really it translated to the other players. Like you could see, other people getting like hyped and amped up alongside Yedlin. And, obviously his hair was part of that, but, just overall, I think he brought the needed communication and the presence for the team that game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You hit it, man. You right on the nail there, especially with like the fact that he didn't get to play in the first Hell is Real. So this was his first experience of playing in Hell is Real. So I mean, he was amped up. He had a lot of really good like last second like clearances, like I think Cheeto did as well. But you needed that MLS experience in the back to communicate, as much as Pal has had MLS experience too, but to have Cheeto in the middle, who's probably arguably the best talent guy, but hadn't had as much of that rivalry feeling, really. So yeah, great shout with Yedlin there, even though I dogged him earlier, but he had a good game.
Yeah, I think for Yedlin, this game, he wanted to do better than he did in the Miami game.
True.
I think this was his game, right? To kind of, that's why he came out with so much energy, really, because he was like, well, I kind of didn't play as well as I would have hoped against Miami. So here's my stamp that I'm going to put on the game. And he was, I think, tied for, FCC in the game for interceptions. I want to say another stat as well in defense, but he did really well and then showed up.
We keep the afro for the next several games. What do you guys think?
It depends on what the fit is, because the fit, I mean, every single time his family comes to the stadium, they are matching and they kill it, and they have the best style I've ever seen in my life. So if it goes with the style, it goes with the style,
I say
Honorable-
Afro.
Afro, no matter what. Let's go.
Yeah. Honorable jersey swap has to go to the Yedlins for their like game fits. I mean, for sure. They've been killing it. What other like family in the MLS has the same fit?
Roman and his Kroger bag. Would you count that as a family?
Speaking of Roman, guys, jersey swap of the week. I'm going to get my first keeper kit here. Roman Celentano, the birthday boy. He got his 7th clean sheet of the year. He had 14 last year, actually, which is crazy. But just stood on his head, made some really good saves down the stretch as well. I felt like his distribution outshined Patrick Schulte, who had made the U.S. national team. Do you think Roman was amped up for this game because of that? Hey, Schulte just made the A squad for U.S. men's national team. I want to be there. I'm going to show out at home against them. And he did.
Yeah, Roman, like we said, was a huge part of this game. And, for him to kind of put his stamp on this rivalry as well now, to put a clean sheet up against Columbus and be a big part of not only, a series win earlier this year, but also, a major point at home against, a team who's kind of been on fire in the East. And so I think he really put his stamp on this one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely deserved as man of the match in my eyes. I mean, his playing spoke for it. I mean, amazing saves, some that, arguably other goalkeepers probably would let in, but really, you're comparing two amazing goalkeepers. Honestly, Celentano could be where Schulte is right now, all things considered. In my eyes, I think backline has a lot to do with it as well. But really, props to Celentano. He's doing a remarkable job for us in the back. He's probably won us a few games due to his shot stopping.
I even though like he maybe hasn't had a good of a year, compared to last year in terms of like clean sheets, that has a lot to say more about your defense than anything. When with all of the different pieces that have been in front of him, like he's done a decent job. If you actually go back and look, like he's had a better FOTMOB rating this year than he did last year. So it is kind of interesting, but maybe that has to do with him having to do a little bit more in the back because the back line has been a little bit more shaky. So there's some truth to that too. But we did have a hell is plausible game on Sunday, guys. The FC Cincinnati 2 got to play the Columbus Crew, but not at TQL. I was very disappointed by this. I almost made it my card of the week. I feel like hell is plausible should be at the MLS stadiums. Like, make the rivalry game in a big setting like that. You get a lot more people. In Columbus, I think they did have it that way, actually, in their stadium. Well, it was their old one. It was their historic one, actually. I take that back. They got beat last time, 6-1. They got beat last time 6-1. In this game, they win 2-1. So awesome response. They clinched the playoffs for the first time in their history. As Sam had kind of tweeted out, clinching playoffs for your first team and your second team within the same weekend. What just an overall performance by both teams, this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it says a lot about what they've done in the development in the offseason, right? Last season, they finished second to last in the MLS Next Pro, and now they're the first team to, clinch a playoff spot on their end. I think that speaks volumes. And, I was looking at the stats specifically. They have had 12 different goal scorers in 25 matches compared to FC Cincinnati, they've had 11 in 28 matches, right? So like the young Garys being able to just anybody pick up the sword and kind of carry the team has been awesome to see. And Ryan, as far as being able to play games like this on, TQL stadium soil, I'm kind of thinking it was more of possible contractual obligation towards NKU ahead of time. Like, hey, this game needs to be played here because it is a big game. So that's what I'm thinking, as well as was it last year that they kind of have kept doing the same things where that last home game of the season will be played at TQL, right?
Yeah, I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, I mean, really with FCC too. I mean, I'm curious to see how the team played formationally last year versus this year. I haven't watched enough to really to see, but I'm very curious if that translates really well to how the first team's playing. I'd imagine so, but really I'm excited to see some of these youth players get signed up to the first team. I know there's a couple that have already signed for next year, but really the future is super bright for us.
Yeah, and well, honestly, great point, Zach, too, is like it's funny for FC Cincinnati too. Like I love them to death, but they did what early FC Cincinnati did, and they put out your roster, but they don't give you the lineup, like the formation. You just get kind of the names all the way down the list. So yeah, I kind of wish they would give you the formation on that. If Pat Noonan's gonna stick with a 5-3-2 or whatever that sword formation is, or even like the one we had last year, you would think the second team would want to adapt a similar style so that when these guys get called up to those positions, they're ready to go. I think that's a great point. Speaking on guys that have arrived, we got one of the Sharilla brothers from Philly also in the past week. So, I mean, what a week for FC Cincinnati too, for snagging talent and beating arguably one of the better, academies too, and a team that just smacked you by 5 goals early on in the season. So, with this win, I believe they're second in the East behind Philadelphia, but they had beaten Philly earlier on in the year, which is really cool. Mamba Dem continues just to dominate. He's a really good forward, and moving forward, you might see him on the first team. Wouldn't be surprised if he's starting to practice with the team by the end of the year. They do play Huntsville, which is coming up on the 22nd, and they only have 3 games left in their regular season. Sam, I think that was a good point. The Orlando game is going to be the one that's at TQL, which will be on October 6th. So that'll be a really cool opportunity for people to go out and see them. The space is limited at NKU, but I mean, that's a good thing that we're filling it up, though. I mean, it's a really cool atmosphere to have it constantly filled up. Nico Giacchini was at the game last night supporting the boys, too. I know he wasn't in training, but cool to see the first team guys there and supporting them.
Yeah, especially if it's free, right? So whenever you're able to get out and go over to NKU, you're able to see a game for free and get to see a quality game like it was on Sunday.
Yeah, no.
Sorry. Were you waiting for me to talk? I apologize.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had anything to add to it.
No, we're good. You sealed the deal on that, Sam.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, they're rolling. I had to go and look at the playoff situation for the MLS Next Pro. So their playoffs are similar to the MLS. They do single elimination though. They don't do that first round 3 game situation, which is really dumb that the MLS does. So at least for FC Cincinnati 2, they'll have, I think, possibly 7 total games or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but if you go back and look at the rules are from like the 2022-2023 season. So I didn't even see an updated like rule thing. So that'll be interesting to keep track of. But another team that's in the playoffs, which is just awesome. But we do have 2 games, guys, for the first team this week. It's going to be a packed week. We are playing 2 away games. So I think the team's going to stay on the road and just go from one place to the other. We play at Minnesota this coming Wednesday. We have 6 games left in that regular season, like we mentioned. 2 in this week, then we'll be down to 4. So it'll be fun to have another Wednesday night MLS game. But I think for the boys going down the stretch, like I don't love to see it before the end of the season. I want to see the game spread out a little bit more if they have tired legs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talking about this Minnesota match, it being on a Wednesday, I know there's always that stat out there that Pat's incredible on Wednesdays. So I'm not really too concerned about the Wednesday game. But if you were to raise some concern, it would be the fact that we have absolutely gotten smacked by Minnesota in our MLS lifetime. FCC has only ever scored 2 goals in 4 matchups against Minnesota. So it hasn't really been too pretty. I believe, what was it, one game in 2019? I think it was like 7-1 or 6-1. I think Minnesota in the early days. So times have changed. Times have changed. So they're currently sitting ninth, barely in that wild card spot for the playoffs. But they're kind of off 2 straight wins. So different team, different club. Zach, what do you think our lineup is going to look like now that we have Miles and Murphy back?
Just commenting briefly first on the fact that it's the wild card match for them. They're going to come out hot. They want to win. We're already fairly comfortable with where we are. Obviously, I mean, our higher seed is better for us, but I think really it's going to be getting more like game time minutes for both Murphy, Robinson. I think they're going to start, if not come off the bench. Teenage, obviously, he's going to get some starting minutes or minutes, however, in which way. Really, I think it's going to be coming down to defense, not worried. I think it's going to come down to really those wing backs, how we're going to play that out. And then whether Nico is, comfortably fit for, with his nose, I don't know. You could see Kubo going up top.
Great shout, especially, with the Nico situation being up in the air. Like, it is his nose, so, I mean, you can play with a face mask on, and he did finish out the game, too. People are making a bigger deal about that than I think it is, honestly. I feel like he'll be fine. In the next 2 games, though, you're going to start to see more consistency, especially based on what he said in his press conference. The back line is going to stay the same, with the exception of Murphy's going to have to win a spot. Like, Teenage Hadebe is going to push him for that spot there. I mean, you have Awazium, you have Robinson. Do you keep Orishano on the right? Do you go back to him on the left and have Yedlin on the right? I mean, there's a lot of interesting things you could do and a lot of like chess pieces now that we've seen these guys in different positions. Like, we know they can do it, but like, what's the best? What is the best for us in this game or even the rest of the season? And there's a lot of debate on that. So, I mean, that's a good thing to have that depth and to have those pieces that can do that. But now's the time to solidify it and say, this is the best team. This is the way we want to play. Get these guys used to playing next to each other and build on that.
Yeah, I think, in either one of these games, do you guys see Lucho playing a full 90 after what we saw in Columbus?
He's going to be pushing for it, especially after being heated from the past game, in my opinion. If he does, like, I feel like it's going to be one game and not the other, just because of the concerns about injury and things like that. So whether it's because, okay, he's on a shorter rest, I mean, either game, if you think about it, it's going to be short rest. So he's going to push for it, absolutely. Is he going to allow for him to do it? That's the question.
I think you're going to see heavier minutes in the LAFC game with him. I think that's just too big of a match.
Next week,
Nashville is Saturday.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry. I thought LAFC was Saturday. I appreciate that. Thanks for calling that out. If that's the case, Nashville's so far down. We don't. No, I think whichever the bigger match is, I think you're going to see Lucho play more minutes in. I think you really probably should have Dotto come in with some minutes, just so that he's going to have to come in probably either later in the season or in the playoffs, just because of the rotation. So he's going to need to find minutes too.
We need an informed Lucho, though. I mean, let's be honest. He didn't have his best game against the Crew, and injury or not, we need our MVP. And I don't need to call him out. He knows. I mean, there's no reason to say anything more than like Lucho's the dog. Like he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna make stuff happen, even if he isn't 100%. So I look forward to, we'll move on to the Saturday game against Nashville away. I think he's gonna play a crucial match in that one, especially because he knows how much Hani Mukhtar is a big player in the league. And every time he goes against another player like that, like the Cuchos, the Messis, like Lucho always seems to get up for those games just a little bit more. So I see him kind of matching Hani Mukhtar and saying, I see you, Hani, but I'm going to raise you the fact that I'm going to go for my second MVP now. But the series right now is tied up 2-2-3 against them. Depending on what we do Wednesday, obviously is going to dictate the lineup we see in this game. But I think in one of the two games you're going to see Teenage Hadebe start, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you got to throw, different lineups in there. Obviously, we're going to see a stat of possibly 37 different lineups, right? Like you had said, we're going to see a different lineup every single game until the end of the year, most likely. But I did think that it was interesting. There's only been once has someone in this series won 2 games in a row. So that was back, I want to say in like 2019, 2020, Nashville had won 2 games in a row against us. Other than that, it's literally been either back and forth or a draw. So in this game, I'll predict it right now. We're either getting a draw or an FCC win. So I will go either 2-1 or 1-1.
Just to comment on Nashville a little bit, they've got the injury bug too. Honestly, they're missing. It looks like Schaffelberg, McNaughton, Leal. I don't know if Lloyd's too. I don't know if he's much of a player, but honestly, those are really really big players that they would love to have in this match. So I think that I always like Nashville matches. They seem to be pretty high intense and pretty enjoyable from a fan perspective. There's always action. Seems like there's drama usually. And like you said, Ryan, I never noticed that, but yeah, Lucho really steps up when he's got someone competing against him. And it's really enjoyable to see his finesse when it comes to that. So looking forward to that. But overall, I mean, I think coming off the Minnesota match, I think you're going to see a stronger showing from FC Cincinnati.
You guys want to know what's really funny about this? Like, Nashville beat us 2-0 earlier on in the year. Like, they're irrelevant right now. They're 14th in the East. So if you want to talk about, all right, Nashville's trying to create a rivalry with FC Cincinnati, how about you show up in the standings, and then when we play each other, it means something. I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to call them out and say, what's going on, guys? If you want this to be a real rivalry, you have to at least show up in the standings. So we had to scroll all the way down to the bottom to find you. Even the Red Bulls are a little bit higher than you as well, which I think is even more of a rivalry than. So I'm going to bring that conversation back. We'll only have a few days to touch on that between Minnesota and Nashville. But 2 away games, I think you're going to get a draw and a win. Sam, I'm kind of in agreement with you. 4 points out of the week sounds good to me. Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking, just with the stakes with Minnesota, I think it's going to be a draw on that 1-1, and then Nashville. I think we're going to pull out like a pretty strong win, 3-1 for me.
Yeah, I think hopefully there'll be a message of you lost to this team, go and smack them, especially in their home. The largest soccer-specific stadium in the country that nobody goes to watch.
I don't think, and they don't like, I know Zach just touched on they have the injury bug, but so do we, right? And we're second in the East. Like,
Sure.
They can't make excuses about that because they haven't done what we have. So I find that funny.
BJ Callahan is their interim. Well, he's full-time manager now. They lost their guy earlier on in the year. I think he's going to be a solid coach for them, but there's too much trying to figure out how they want to play at the end of the season, and too little too late, even though they just won their last game too. But we'll get to the trivia question and answer. So again, the question was, when was the last time that FC Cincinnati had lost to a Western Conference MLS team? It was St. Louis, who is now in the East, but was in the West last year. So that was April, or I think it was April of 2023 is the last time. They are undefeated this year against Western Conference opponents. I believe we actually did win last year in Leagues Cup against Kansas City as well. So it's been very interesting that we've dominated the West Coast teams. I hope that can continue on Wednesday. Gentlemen, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just hope we get at least 4 points out of this week. Supporter Shield is kind of out of reach at this point, but I think grabbing a good standing and possibly a second place would be pretty good going into MLS Cup.
I want to see a consistent lineup and some progress on just consistency and seeing the team get that form that we need for the playoffs.
Yeah, and that comes from goal scoring. Like you mentioned earlier on, is just getting that offense to just gel and know where each other are and just be putting goals in, honestly. And then you have a better and more consistent back line. Like that's the recipe for success. So let's put it together. Let's get some wins. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.